to reference the John Hopkins dosage,
Mm-hmm.
I think that works there. They have a very controlled set and setting with 2 sitters, and I think there's taking the higher dosages by yourself, even if you've got the set and setting down, without having a guide, there's more chance, to lose your shit. And so
you could flip the switch real quick.
Right. So I think at 4 grams in that therapeutic setting, they're still having the same inner dialogue you had, just at a much more intense, much more, looking deeper into the archives and fixing severe trauma that's been piled on, underneath your ego and all that. And to where you need to get your ego out of the way to even access it, to where you weren't working through any sub ego issues, in your trip, you were just like kind of the normal confusion that everyone goes through. You were just able to tune out the noise and focus on the inside, and you don't need to get your ego out of the way to do that. If anything, you were working with your ego, and
yeah, that's kind of what it felt like, really.
Which is a good thing. Like we, the psychedelic community, we talk about killing off the ego so much, but it's like, I mean, to some point it exists for a reason, maybe, you can't trip all the time. You can't always, having a permanent ego death. So like maybe
now with that mindset,
right. Maybe the point is to learn how to live with this motherfucker, and so that's why I'm such a proponent for kind of the level of experience that you had,
Yeah. And I mean, that's even something that I struggled to realize after the 5 gram experience. Like I would say even like a year after, when I was talking to my girlfriend about it and still processing it because of how weird it was. Like it's weird because you don't really remember much about it. You just know it was weird.
Yeah.
And she just helped me understand that, like, yeah, you might kill the ego, but guess what? You're coming back to it.
Yeah.
It's like, no matter what, we're stuck in this reality for this moment in time. So even though you can blast off and get away from this moment in time, it's not something that's gone forever. So you might, like you said, just like figure out how to work with it, and I really do think that's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and that's not to say I'm not a proponent for blasting off. I definitely think everyone has to have that experience too.
Certainly.
Everyone has to take it too far to know what is too far, but also, to fucking humble yourself. I think that's the other important lesson in all these psychedelics, not just mushrooms, is, you need to at some point have some experience that you walk away from going like, whoa, I don't fucking know nothing and nobody does, because like that's such a big, a big problem in the toxicity of our culture, especially with, online arguments and social media and stuff like that, is confidence and arrogance in our beliefs. And psychedelics, that blast off ego death, doesn't have to be permanent to have a permanent lasting effect that results in you going like, man, I'm going to be way nicer to people that fucking don't think the same way as I do, because neither of us know anything, and like, so, that's why, I like, the things we talk about and the people we talk to and the experiences they've had, because I believe it all, like I have no reason not to believe anything, so.
Yeah. Well, and something else that goes along with the ego death terminology. Beforehand, I always thought of it as ego being a negative thing, and as being, I guess, like a robotic controller, or on top of that, just being an asshole.
Yeah.
or I guess whatever is negative or whatever you think is negative about yourself, that's ego.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case. That isn't the case. And there is good parts, bad parts, everything in between that makes up your ego. But without an ego, there is no understanding of this reality. So you need it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was thinking the other day about ego and stuff like that. And I was like, I was thinking about our brain as being a computer system, right? And it's like, our ego is our fucking operating system. You can update it. You can, you can reboot it. You can defrag it. You can install a different version. You can double boot it. You can, you can run Linux and Windows or whatever. You can do all those things. But at the end of the day, our hardware doesn't work without it. You're running on CDOS or whatever. And so. There's a reason. Like it's a minuscule moment in time that we are human and we have this consciousness, and that's all we can be sure of. But for whatever reason, like we're not egoless all the time, and so there's a reason that our human consciousness at this point in time builds up an ego, and I think it's important not to let it overrun you and to be aware of its existence and its non-existence and what our essence is without it. But then I think the other important part is to learn how to update it to run properly and, and defrag it every now and then. And so like, that's kind of how I've come around with all the psychedelic talk of ego death, that it's like, the heroic doses are good every now and then, and you should at least do one. But yeah, 2 grams in nature during the day by yourself is fucking powerful. It really is, and anyone that has an argument against that is probably someone that just takes high doses all the time, and it's like, they don't have that frame of reference. They've never had that 2 gram by themselves therapeutic meditative dose, and so, I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's a mute point at that point, that like there's nothing to argue about there if you don't have that comparison.